Hey guys, what is going on? So in the previous section we have made a website using HTML and the knowledge we had at that time. So right now we know what CSS is, and I decided to teach you CSS by working because I believe that's the best way and you will see the most common things used in practice. So let's do this. So, if you have not been following along and if you have just joined, I'm going to leave a link in the description that's gonna have these folders zipped up. And you can change the picture, of course. I'm using my picture, please use whatever you want. And just make a style.css, an empty file, and we're gonna get started from that. So the first thing we have to do is link our style.css into the index.html. And this is pretty straightforward. We're just gonna link our link that is relation of style sheet, and the reference is style.css. And I usually recommend you guys, when you do something, when you pull something into the document you're working on, test it just to see if the path is correct. This is simple enough. But sometimes you're gonna have more difficult paths, so it's always good to do some checks, right? So I usually do a background check. I give a background just some color, save the document, and reload the page, and then sure enough, yeah, the background is there. It's pretty ugly, so I'm going to take it off, save, reload the page, and that's back. Okay, so the first thing when I start designing the web page is to think how it's gonna look. So I don't want really my documents to be like this, okay? I don't want it to start all over from left to right and then just randomly go like this. I want my content to be centered in the center of the page, no matter how wide the display is, right? So this is how we usually do it. We have an element that's going to surround entire document, entire content and everything. And we usually call it wrapper. So let's make a new div with a class of wrapper, and we are going to enclose everything inside this wrapper. Okay, I'm just going to indent this so it makes more sense. Okay, so we have a surrounding wrapper div, and in the style.css we're going to call it up by using dot because we gave it a class. If we gave it an ID, then we would not call it a class, we would call it an ID and call it with hashtag. Right? But since this is a class, we do it by dot. And I want this to be total of, 960 pixels, okay, for now. And if I reload the page, nothing happens. Well, not what you think. But as you can see, the text, this text, is breaking here. And let me show you. If I give this a background of gray, for example, save the page, and reload, this is the total width of our content. But now I want it to be centered in the center of the page, right? So how do we do that? Well, there's a function in CSS, an attribute called margin, okay? And this is used a lot. So margin is, just imagine if you type in four values, 10 pixel, 5 pixel, 15 pixel, and 20 pixel. Okay, this is how we say from which side this margin is going to be applied. Let me give it more space so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, something like this. So if I save this and reload the page, now margin from, this is top, right, bottom, and left. It goes in circle, right? Just imagine a circle with starting from the top. Okay, but if we do something like this, okay, then these margins, the first number is going to be top and bottom, and the second number is going to be left and right. And of course, if we leave just one number in the margin, then all the sides, okay, all the sides of the square are gonna have 15 pixel margin. Let's give it something drastic. Let's give it 50, okay? So you can see. So 50 pixels from top and bottom, and left and right. But you don't see left and right, right? So let's just give it 50 pixels, and then let's do 10 pixels left and right, and you will see that this is going to come closer. Okay, so what I want to do with margins in the wrapper is just say 0 auto. Okay, so I want top and bottom to be 0 and left and right to be automatically calculated from left and from right to be in the center. Okay, and now when I resize the window, my content is going to stay in the middle, no matter how big it is. I'm stretching to a second display right now. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? This is the centering that we do. Okay, so next I want to get rid of this gray, background gray. I don't like it and it kind of hurts my eyes, but if you want to keep it so you can see where you're working on, that's totally cool. Okay, next we have, when we're going top to bottom, we have header, right? And the header is technically these two things so far. So what are we gonna do here? Well, first, let's say we want to have a height, of the header. And I don't know how tall I want it to be, but let's just play around a little bit. And let's say I want it to be tall, a 550, height of 550 pixels. If I save the page and reload, it's gonna give a lot of space down to the bottom, and this is cool for now. Now my idea for this is to have a homepage, to have a title, and then navigation over on this side inline, and then have some picture here. So how are we gonna do that? Well, the homepage, let's give it an ID of brand, because this is gonna be a brand or ID of title, whichever you wanna call. I'm gonna go with brand. I find it easier. Let's change this to just DevThings. Okay, save the page, that's done. Now we go to styles and where's the navigation? Okay, navigation, I'm going to give ID of nav. Now, what are we gonna do right now is in the styles, so we have ID of brand, right? That's for our logo, and we have ID of nav, that's for navigation. So I want this brand to be all the way left and navigation to be all the way right. So we're gonna do this by saying float. Okay, float left, and navigation we want it to float right. Now, this is gonna do exactly what I asked it to do, right? It's gonna take it and float it left, and the nav is gonna go right. Next, this home and contact, this navigation list, well, I think it looks ugly, in my opinion. So let's give it some style, right? Now, I want to select this UL element inside nav, right? Inside this ID of nav. So how do we do that? I'm gonna type in nav and then UL, space UL. So nav space UL. And now I have selected the unordered list. And I want list style to be none. Whoops, not one, but none. Okay. If we reload the page, those dots are going to disappear. Let me just comment this out. The save, then we're gonna lose the unordered list. We could have called this ordered list or whatever. We still wanna lose it, right? I don't want this list to have a style. Okay. Next, I want one more interesting thing, and that is li element. Right? So I want to select this li, which is inside of ul, which is inside of nav. So this is how you do it. Hashtag nav to select the ID of nav, ul, li. And I want this to be, well, display inline. Okay, if I reload the page, then it's gonna come inline. It's not gonna be in a block anymore. It's not gonna come one on top of each other. Now the elements are gonna come in line. And let's just do a few more things. First, I want font size to be a bit bigger. Let's go with 16 pixels. If I reload the page, nothing happens. Oh, that's right, because inside the li, we have A tags, and A tags are what contains the text. So we're gonna take this off and do exactly what you think. A, and then font size to be, let's go with 18 pixels. If I save, reload the page, it's a bit bigger, but I want it to be even bigger, so let's go with 24. That's fine, I guess. Okay, text decoration on this UL, or this on these links on the A tag. I don't want it to be underlined, so text decoration, I want none of that. I reload the page, it's gone. And li, this is li tag now. I want to give it some padding, okay, some space in between them. It's pretty much the same as margin, and I'm going to draw in a little photo to explain you guys what it is, and you should see right now how the difference between margin and padding look like. Okay, so I'm gonna give this some padding. Let's say 0, 20 pixels. Okay, 0 because I want top and bottom to be 0, and 20 pixels I want them to be apart. If I save, reload the page, this is what happens. But now I just noticed this is not in line, right? So I want to give some padding on top. Let's say 10 pixels. Save, reload the page, nothing happens. That's because this is margin now. We gotta move the LIs. Well, actually, we gotta move the UL. So we can do margin, and then what we could do is we do 10 pixels, 0, 0, 0, or we could just say margin top. Okay, because we just want one margin to move. So let's give it 10 pixels, save, reload, and it moved on top. Well, let's give it some more. Maybe a bit more. Let's go with 30. I think this is pretty much in line, or at least similar. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do is have a header image here, right? It's gonna take the place of the whole header. So how are we gonna do that? Well, first you gotta find a picture, right? And I have visited unsplash.com and found this awesome picture. I have downloaded it and it's in my projects right now. I have renamed it bg.jpg. So, how are we gonna tackle this? Well, inside our header, I'm gonna make another div and it's gonna be called header bg, okay? Like header background. Let me copy this into the styles dot header.bg, and now background. I want to select that picture, and the way you do that is by calling it in its URL. So URL bg.jpg. Okay, if you reload a page, nothing happens. And why is that? Because this background, this div that we just made, has no height, right? It's just, we called it, but it's got no content in it, right? If we give some content, then yeah, it's gonna be there. But since we don't have anything, and we don't want anything, we're gonna go with styles. So we're gonna give it a height of, let's say, 100%. Okay, so it's gonna stretch nicely from top to bottom. If we reload the page, yeah, that's what happened. But it's big. This image is way too big for this space. So we can do one more thing. Background size, and we're gonna give it a background size of color. Okay, if we reload a page, that's cool, right? Now it's going to snap in and just look okay. Two things happens now. First, we don't see what does that things is cold because it's black on black, right? So let's change its color. Let's go with white. Color white, and you can type in the letters, or you can type in the hexadecimal, which would be FFF, or 6 Fs. Okay, that's good enough. And now these look ugly as well. So let's give it some color. Let's give it a color white as well. Okay, this looks a bit better, but this now is too close to the edge and I don't like that, so I want to give it some padding or margin, whichever you want. And this is gonna be margin left, right? Margin left 15 pixels. I think that's gonna be good enough. And if we see, it moved right a little bit, and this is cool enough. So now what you can do is, well, let me see, we are way into this lesson so far, so I'm gonna call it the end for now. But I'll see you soon in another lesson where we're going to style the rest of this. So I'll see you soon.